Okay, Amitofo Tilayu. We'll begin with the four great vows. Vow first. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Welcome to you. You all came back, and we're going to continue on with Dao Xin. It's not so much that we're continuing on with Dao Xin, but we're at a very important point in terms of the development of Chan. Now Chan is beginning to be something that is known as Chan. Um, and there is this point where this looking into things, looking into the mind, is now beginning to change. And working in tandem with this looking into mind is this aspect of gazing at mind, which is a little bit different. One of them is coming from a doctrinal side, and the other one is coming from the experiential side. And so this is very important in terms of this transition, and it reflects the arrival of the Mahaprajna Paramita Sutra and this quantum shift in how one practices Buddhism in a Chinese setting. And the Chinese are looking at it, and here accompanying with more sutras that are arriving, then there is more of probing as to what the practice is. And it's very interesting because we have this benefit right now through the internet to be able to see so many different sutras, more sutras than we could possibly read or study. But we have to follow our heart in terms of saying what we should study. And we will, it doesn't really matter as one begins to practice more, you will be naturally guided to what you need to hear. But it does have some kind of um, a, a, a direction in terms of where you're going and what you need to study. So you may be studying something for many, many years and then switch to something else. As I've mentioned, the Harry has become a very, very good practitioner with the Lotus Sutra and really knows it verse for verse. And we look at things and we kind of, what I like to do is kind of lace things together and go into one sutra, kind of like an eyelet, and go into it and then come out and then tie it to another and then tie it and tie it until I have this package or matrix of the Buddha practice. It's all different depending on how one is looking at it. And I've spent time where I was working on the Abhidharma or the Yogacara school. Those are practices in their way, Madhyamika. Those are ones that you have to devote a serious amount of time to get them. It can't just be some kind of a soundbite that you get, but you lose the essence of it. But as we begin to bring this all together, we see the importance of Dao Yin in terms of this time period where all of these sutras are coming in. And again, as I had mentioned before, there was this change in which before monks were following this ascetic life where they would go out begging and not really staying in one place, where all of a sudden Dao Yin now is moving into a location where he operates from. And so we begin to see all of this coming in, all of this where there's notable Chan masters that are being developed during this time period, and all the way through where we get to pass him to Holmgren and to also to Hui Ning and his counterpart at that time, Shen Shu. And then these two, Hui Ning and Shen Shu, developed what they call the northern and southern schools. And one of them was developing towards what they were saying sudden, and the other one was a gradual practice. They weren't necessarily opposite ends of things. They were just in the emphasis of how one looks at it, and the development of looking into the mind, but also look the emphasis of when one sits in meditation, how that looking into the mind becomes gazing at the mind. So one is still conceptual, but necessary and based on principles. But then when one sits, then all of that is just a simply foundational. And that the essentially all of that practice and understanding in the samsaric side becomes this gazing at mind. And then essentially what it does is it doesn't shield the mind from the appearances within it, the multitude of appearances or thinking. And this is something where a lot of the scholars have problems with this of understanding this no thinking. And they're kind of confused about this, and they take that to be when one sits, there's no thinking. But it's not really that what one sits and there's no thinking. It is when one sits that one is not attached to the thinking. The thinking is naturally arising in mind, but it's not separate from mind itself. It's seen just as mind, and one with the looking into mind and the contemplation of mind, then is able to transcend that kind of a thinking conceptual contemplation into just this pure naked awareness, this pure mind that's there. And the problem that we have in doing this and understanding the ancients, and they had problems even back then in terms of people looking at this, but it was those masters that were able to sit and contemplate and see through mind and penetrate that were able to overcome that. The ones that did not do that, they don't know. And so everything to them, even though they can listen to it and talk about that, and they cannot penetrate, and they cannot do wall gazing very well, simply because of the fact that they have no faith in that working. And so they are constantly translating it into a samsara conceptualization, even though in their mind they trick themselves into thinking that they're not doing that. They are doing that. And this is something that last week I really emphasized this and worked on this. And one of my students took it to heart. And because of the causes and conditions, she was in isolation for so long that she was able to meditate kind of like a biguan, a solitary retreat for several days. And as she took to heart what I said, she did penetrate. She was able to get a realization. And it's not something that one gets a realization and they have to articulate what the realization is. Someone, if it's sincere and genuine, one knows that they had this realization. And it was interesting because what she said was, the way in is right view. Without right view, there's no way in. And it's very difficult because when there's constantly, they're talking about these different vehicles And they use vehicles for many different things, but they will use Shravaka, meaning a sound hearer, somebody that hears, like you may be hearing my voice, and that's one way in. And then there is the Pratika Buddha, which is someone who backs into it, either because of karmic forces and a connection, but they did not have a formal training in it. They're able to do that, but it's very difficult for them to really penetrate deeply into the most profound, the Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi. They still lack that understanding of this compassion. And then we get into the next level of Buddha Bodhisattva in terms of realizations, but these realizations require right view. And because of right view, then the realizations are much more profound and deeper in their experience and more lengthy in their experience. If you attach to it, you mess everything up. If you say, oh, I had an experience, you know, this is not the way that one looks at things in that way. One is not concerned about their self-certification. The only thing that one begins to be more concerned about is how precious the time is and how much needs to be done before in this body that this heart stops beating. And so it's a different orientation just simply because of what is there. There is not a fear of dying or the fear of not getting the things done. It is just this intense interest in helping others and sharing this kind of an experience. So when this person had contacted me, like as I mentioned, with very little communication, I knew that they had experienced something special, this realization, because they followed what I said. They were fearless in that. The only difference between that person and perhaps yourself in terms of this is that she did not waver. She did not give in to the thoughts or begin to pick up the thinking again. When we say no thinking, doesn't mean that thoughts and images do not appear in mind. They're going to appear in mind. That's natural. But then again, naturally, where they're appearing is mind itself. And that we understand that the mind is creating all of this, and it's not separable. The most difficult part that we have in terms of understanding this is that we don't understand the mutability of mind. Immutable means that it doesn't change. It's not born, it doesn't increase. It is just the thusness of mind itself. All of this other stuff is mutable, the samsaric world. You know, when I was younger, I had hair. Now I don't have hair. I have a little on the sides and this, whatever you call it, hair, but it's constantly changing. But the mind is not. The mind doesn't get older. Mind perhaps may demonstrate more wisdom, but that wisdom has always been there. And we see this very, very clearly. We do not have to make the clouds in the sky part to see the sky. It is this gnosis, this realization that the sky and the clouds are not separate. We always want to hold on to the idea of an emptiness. And our idea of emptiness is born in conceptualization. It's samsaric. We have to let go of that. First, we have to appreciate that everything is empty, but we have to move beyond our conceptualization of this emptiness. When we do, then we see everything, anything that's moving, as empty. Anything that's static, it's empty. It's there and it's just appearing. And this is what was happening way back with the fourth patriarch, is that all of these sutras are coming in, and all of these points are beginning to be made. And it was an incredible transition point that was happening. So I want to, in a moment, read a few quotes from that time period that will help you with this. But I wanted you to understand, since this is also the emphasis is on meditation, is that you can, if you practice in the proper way, if you're patient and you're sincere, you can make great inroads with right view. But right view has to be there. If it's not there, then it makes it much more difficult and longer for one to do this. This is why there was this emphasis on the suddenness in terms of that. And so it's kind of an interesting thing, because as I was mentioning, during this time period when Daoshin, then now actually it wasn't so much Southern, he moved Eastern, and it became known as the Eastern Mountain Chan tradition. And so this is what was passed on to others, including Huineng, Hongren, and Huineng. And Shen Shu was still there. He was still there talking about how one practices, but this demonstrated the differences in terms of the sudden and not. And it's kind of interesting because then later on, all of this was sent to Tibet, but the Tibetans were looking more towards the Indian influence rather than the Chinese, and they're kind of looking at the Chinese and going, well, I don't really understand that completely, but it was there and it was clear. It was just different. And the Tibetans, in their way, organized their systems towards what's called tantric practices more than the Chan practice. The Doshin practice of Tibetans is very similar to Chan, but they began to use less this idea of this kind of a wall gazing meditation into this idea of looking into imagery and using the imagery and the esoteric aspect of mind to practice. Esoteric is kind of drawing out mind and drawing out the different aspect of mind via certain practices. It's not very easy to do that, but it can be very, very good. But there's a danger of just simply developing conceptualizations and fantastic conceptualizations and resting on those experiences rather than a true experience of a realization of mind, of the self nature of mind. And this is where the Chan practice was heading towards, was looking towards this self nature of mind, and not conceptually, but seeing, no, I can't even say seeing it, experiencing it directly. This direct awareness of this is not easy, because this is where the words no longer have any kind of what I'd call any kind of an impact, or they cannot influence any further than what they're doing. That if they just don't have that kind of a force to them. And then at that point, they become kind of like from the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, an albatross around your neck that you can't get rid of. And it's difficult to do that. In that poem, this mariner had killed an albatross, which was considered to be a very good omen, because that meant that land was close. And as a result of it, he had to hang this dead bird around his neck. And sometimes when we meditate, that's what we're doing, is we're hanging a dead bird around our neck. We don't know how to distinguish conceptualization aspect of it and just let go. When you let go, then there can be a realization that's there. We don't have to wait for it. We don't experience it. It just is. And one doesn't even have to talk about it. But if you come to me and you go, hey, Gilbert, I'll probably slap you. No, because that's not it. Or people will go like trying to put a thought into your head, but it's still conceptualization. There might as well put a thought into the head of a pumpkin. So the thing is it's not in this way. So as Master Ling Chi said, this is just like a lot of trashy talk, but it's necessary so that we can begin to look at how to practice in the proper way. When we can get the practice in the right way, there's nothing to do, nothing to say, nothing to think. Yet it does not obstruct mind. We are not looking to shut the whole carnival down. We just see the carnival as it is, with all the different spinning Ferris wheels and things spinning this way, and carnival barkers that you hear, and all the yummy food, and the people that are trying to separate you from your dime on the throwing on the plates, whatever it is, memories you have. I mean, all of that stuff happens when you sit to meditate. There's just a plethora of carnival experiences, whether they're, the funny house or the scary house or whatever. All of those things are going to come up. We don't have to banish them. We don't have to run away from them. We don't have to fear them. We don't do anything. Mind illuminates this. And this is from the very, very beginning. The Buddha realized that there was this illumination, or the luminousness of the mind. But if we begin to conjure up ideas of what this luminousness is, we mess it all up. We don't see things in with the perspective of mind. We cannot see things in this way. Before I came on, as I was devouring my 2 frozen burritos before coming on to talk to you, there was a program. I don't know if Michael's here tonight. Is he around? Anyway, it was talking about the 4th dimension. And it was interesting because talking about the 4th dimension, it's like, how do you even try to explain the 4th dimension? But we can't do that. But when they were talking about it, I could see that. And it was very interesting because they were using this idea of this little, like a steel ball, and said, well, the ball can become very, very big, or it can become very small. It can be this way, it can do this. And I thought, this is like the conceptualization or the discussions in the sutras of how big the Buddhas are in comparison to us, or somebody talking about how all the worlds could be balancing on a single mote of dust. That's beyond us to be able to even begin to contemplate something like that. But in the Buddha realm, I won't call it a dimension, in the Buddha realm, this is not something that is impossible. It's just the mind itself, and this idea of the mind being able to be so flexible to grow or decrease as any kinds of experiences there. Mind is in the same way. We cannot understand that. But the only thing we can do is we can just sit in meditation and wall gaze. And as we wall gaze, it doesn't turn off all of the different appearances that are coming into mind. It just that is testifying to that the mind works, that this is how mind works in any given time period, is that it will do these things and conjure up different appearances, conjure up emotions and all sorts of things, but they all are created by the mind. This part frustrates us because we want to turn it off. We want to tune to the Buddha channel, but we get all of these crazy images coming up, and it frustrates us because we cannot see the Buddha in all of these crazy, frustrating images, but they're precisely there in accordance with causes and conditions. We don't see that. We don't understand Pratika Samappada. And when we begin to see things in this way, then all experiences are created by the Buddha mind. And when we how would I say, submit to that, to allow our illusory ego to accept that in a sincere way, then mind can change. And mind is no longer bound by the samsara, but is beginning to be able to perceive the mind itself. So one is no longer looking at the clouds, hoping that the clouds in the sky will change into something very beautiful or rainbows, so that, or get out of the way so you can see the sky. One sees that everything is perfectly in its place. When you sit to meditate and all these thoughts come up in your mind, they're perfectly there. Perfectly. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to adjust the vertical or the horizontal or make it crystal clear. You don't have to do any of that. No, it's a homage to an ancient Out of Limits program. But in any case, the thing is that you don't have to do anything. You just, mind is just there, not your mind. And everybody's always talking about their mind. Stop talking about your mind, what I think. No, or what we think. Now you're getting me involved in that. Don't talk in this way. It's not that you have to separate and say, no, I'm no longer Gilbert. You have to know me by a symbol. I'm not Prince. It's not in that way. A symbol is still a symbol. It's still communication in samsara. Sorry, but that's not going to get you an exit pass, nor do you seek an exit pass. That's the thing, is that what we're looking for is this exit pass to get out of samsara. We don't need to do that. We just have to be able to understand using the right view. And the right view is there. And when we sit to meditate, we meditate right. When we're sitting, we don't have to push anything out, but we do anyway. And we conjure up all sorts of thoughts, and we have these emotion seeking sensations that are looking for something. Make me scared, make me happy, make me have a desire. I want to, I don't want to, whatever it is. Those are the most insidious of appearances in mind, because they're formless, but they do the most harm because they're grasping. We don't understand those as thoughts. We don't see that. So we miss out. It is like an antimatter that's looking for some matter in order for it to matter to you. And once it's found, then it does matter. The thing is that if you let that go, if you don't have to banish it out, get out of my mind. No, not your mind, just mine. If it's just mine, where are you going to banish this thought from? You're out. Okay, you can't play in the game anymore. But no, no buts. You need, no, I don't need you. You're gonna get afraid. No, I don't need that. Out. And all you're doing is giving it more and more energy, more attention, and assuring its repetitiveness in mind. Didn't I tell you to get out? And it comes back again. But you called me. No, I didn't call you. Yeah, look, you're looking at me right now. Why can't we see that? Why can't we understand how mind works? Just let it be. Let the mind be. Just be very, very, very calm. You don't have to do anything. You don't even have to not do anything. What are you doing? I'm not doing anything. Well, that's still something. You're not doing something. So don't play mind tricks on yourself. Let it go. This is really the key to meditation. You don't have to do anything else. You just sit there. Don't fall over. Don't fall asleep. Just be aware in that moment of how that you are meditating. And when I say you are meditating, it is mind that's meditating. There's nothing there. What are you going to put into mind that's not already there? That's wisdom. And if you send it out, you cannot send it out outside of mind. Where did Gilbert go? Oh, he went out of bounds. What do you mean he went out of bounds? Yeah, he went out of bounds. He's gone. No, it's not in that way. Gilbert is just realized to be a dream. But we don't have to say, I don't want to do this. Bodhisattvas don't say, I don't want to dream anymore. When's the next bus to nirvana? They go, okay, well, once back into it again. We go right back into the dream. The only difference is that one is aware that the dream is not other than mind itself and functioning perfectly. It's difficult for us because we don't understand that. We don't understand what appears to be the inequities in the world. Why does this little baby have to be killed? Why does this person have to die? Why can't we get like even with people or whatever it is, all the different things? And more we buy into the experience of that there is a life in being. When we see things as they are, it's not that you get it, because you can't get it because you're not there to get it. It's just mind. We don't understand that this is esoteric. This is something that cannot be explained in words, but you can experience it if you sit in meditation in the proper way. But even as Shifu said, meditation is not to be used in this way. It is just a practice, but we have to put it into our own daily life. So in our own daily life, we see all these things arising. I see good things and bad things happening to me all the time. Now, why did this happen to me? I'm good. I've been presenting the Dharma to people, trying to save them. But why do bad things happen? Still, because I haven't exhausted my karma, and I create new karma just like you guys do. And when I do that, and when I hold on to it, I suffer just like you. The only difference is that I know that I have a choice. That the choice is to just be in mind. And wherever one is at is in mind. And we don't even hold on to this. We don't even abide in mind or non-abide in it. This is the secret. You go, well, it has to be one or the other. Only in samsara. But in the Buddha realm, this makes perfect sense. And it's very funny because as one obtains realizations and they read the sutras and you go, wait a second, that never made any sense. And all of a sudden it makes sense to you and you go, oh. And then you know you're applying mind rather than conceptualization in that moment. So this is kind of where we're at. Let me get to some of the stuff I wanted to talk about. I've been kind of paraphrasing it. And in this particular article, this article was an article called The Conjunction of Chinese Chan and Tibetan Redzog. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. Chen thought.
Dzogchen. It's Dzogchen.
It's Dzogchen?
Yeah.
But it's called, it's RDZOGS.
Yeah, that's the original transliteration. It's pronounced as Dzogchen still.
That makes a lot more sense to me. But yeah, thank you. So the Dzogchen thought. So this is like exploring the two connection, or the connection between them, and reflections on Tibetan Donghuan master manuscripts. And this is kind of interesting because the Donghuan manuscripts was a game changer, because there was a lot of gaps in things, and all of a sudden they discovered these transcripts that added light to many different things. And here they're using these manuscripts to look at it and create what was before a missing link between Tibetan Dongchen and Chinese Chan. And so it's very interesting in terms of that. Thanks for that, because because it didn't show anything in terms of Dongchen. This is, I guess, a traditional spelling for it. RDZOGS CHEN. And so it's talking about these different sutras. I'll try to explain it. It's fairly complicated because it's a scholarly article, but it says, and it was talking about the contents of the small treatise. This treatise was very similar to the Mahaprajnaparamita treatises, and in terms of this, and it's referencing this ratification of the true principle, and that's coming from the Washang Mahayana. So this is based on the Avatamsaka Sutra, and it states that sentient beings are bound to samsara due to habitual tendencies. Shikui, I guess, is in Chinese. The concepts of discrimination. These habitual tendencies hinder their original omniscience. So when we hold on to these habitual tendencies, we are not able to have this omniscience that is in the self-nature of mind, in the nature of you who are listening right now, have this ability. Not you as an individual, but you as mind have this ability, this omniscience. And they say Ben Lai Yi EJ Z. Sorry, my Chinese is bad, but not as bad as my Tibetan. Okay. Enlightenment, however, is achieved by non-attachment with respect to those deluded thoughts, regardless of whether they arise or not. Very interesting. When the practitioner becomes aware of their arising without grasping or abiding in them, each thought is liberation and prajna. Not bad. Moment to moment to moment. That's why Shifu used to always say the Buddha's in the present moment. If a thought arises and one does not have that kind of an idea of it, of an attachment to it, because there's not the self, that's liberation. It's fairly simple. It's really simple. We make it complicated. We get tied up in all of it, but right from the very beginning, this is what was coming out in this small treatise that was discovered in the Dunham Cave. Judging from its content, it is at this point that the small treatise can be linked to the teachings of the Huashang Mahayana as exposed in the ratification of the true principle. The small treatise explains how the principle of bringing about complete nirvana without the remainder of aggregates is to be realized. So this small treatise is giving you the way, the template of how to practice. And so that if you're able to do this and not attached to the aggregates, then you can, that is nirvana. There's not a place you go to nirvana. It is just the function of the mind and the experience of the self-nature of mind, not in a dual way, but mind itself. Imagine. It's not like you here and mind here, and these, you experience what mind is. You experience that there's never been this nor this. It is just this. Just that. And that's what you get. So remember, when you put your hands together from now, you're combining. This is just mind. It's this. Or you could do this. Same thing. The thing is if you think you're doing anything, you're 1,000 miles off. So the meditation instruction, which also appears verbatim in the ratification of the true principle, is as follows. Having reversed the mind's 6 faculties, sound, sight, taste, touch, thought, I think maybe, hopefully there's 6 of them there. I missed one, hearing, so that they do not engage in deluded objects, one gazes at one's own mind. One gazes at one's own mind and realizes that it has no reality whatsoever. Bring me your mind and I will silence it. I cannot find my mind. Then it is silenced. Who said that? Come on. Nobody wants to even say that. That's like such an E with like 2 + 2. Bodhidharma. And so right from the very beginning, here we have all of this. He didn't make it up. Well, I shouldn't say he didn't make it up, but he didn't need that to say what he said, because he had the realizations already. In this last week when I was reading about this, I felt very comfortable, because a lot of things what I've been saying out of my experiences, I realized was written 2,000 years ago. And it made me feel comfortable in my passing this Dharma to you, because there it was. And almost in the same words that I've been using to talk to you about, but then I'm seeing this there. Of course, I've read it in many different sutras, but here was just this budding of the right of Buddhism, especially in China. So we continue, because it said it has no reality whatsoever. Therefore, nothing is to be thought of. Therefore, nothing is to be thought of. Because afflictions are not being minded, so nothing is to be conceptualized. If you're sitting there and you're meditating and you're not attaching to all of these afflictions of boredom, of wanting something that's there, a desire or whatever, if you don't attach to any of that, you're just wall gazing, then essentially there's nothing there that's going to be conceptualized. In this way, the objects of the mind are completely purified, and there is nothing to abide in. Completely purified. What does completely purified mean? If you do this without any idea of conceptualization, what does that mean that they're completely purified? Anybody?
No duality.
No duality. Okay. But does that make them pure? Take it a step further.
Seeing their true nature.
Just say true nature.
True nature.
Or you're going to contradict your non-duality. You see, this is why I'm constantly working on this to try to get this. Of course, I understand what she's saying, and she's using the convention of words, but I have to use the convention of mind, so that it gives rise to mindfulness as to what one says and how one does it. So it's important. Thank you, Santa. So there's nothing to abide in. Why? Because you're in mind. Where are you going to go? You go this way, it's mine. This way, it's mine. You compress in, it's mine. If you expand out, it's mine. Remember, it's not following dimensions, the 3 dimensions of the samsaric world. It's beyond the 4th dimension, beyond the 5th dimension, whatever. I think the quantum physicists have 11 dimensions. No, you'd think they'd finish at 10, but I don't know who found the 11th one. But in any case, there's no conceptualization. If they tried to conceptualize a 12th one, it wouldn't make a difference. It's still conceptualization. So this is why they talk about the Buddha realm. Through this practice of gazing at mind, the practitioner sees samsara and nirvana as no different. The nature of primordial gnosis is realized as being empty, and even the concept of emptiness is seen to be insubstantial. So this statement that the scholar is saying is full of a lot of Dharma. We'll just call it Dharma. I mean, it is there, and he's trying to articulate via words what one could see in this one thought. That they say one thought for 10,000 years is the same thing. So he's saying this practice of gazing at mind, the practitioner sees samsara and nirvana as no different. So when we look at things in this way, this is exactly what we were talking about, that the objects of mind are completely purified. Then we don't see that as separate. It's hard for us because we go, but my legs hurt. That takes priority over gnosis. I wish I could spread some gnosis on my legs to make them go away. So we have a difficulty with it. And it's saying that the nature of the primordial gnosis is this direct experience of something. I'll put it in a very rudimentary way. So when you were a young kid, and let's say whatever age you started, I'll put it at a safe age, you were 16, sweet 16. And people talk to you about what a kiss was, but you'd never been kissed. You wouldn't know what a kiss is. When you're kissed, you had a direct experience of this. And I'm saying it in a way like a very sentimental type of kiss, a sweet kiss, not some kid running up and kissing you on the side of the cheek and running away. But I mean, something where one sees that it transcends the ideas of what you thought before about a kiss. Just imagine this and multiply it by 10 billion times of what mind is versus samsara. Wouldn't you want to to have that kind of a gnosis and experience that's there. And that can be something very sudden, or it can be worked on. Again, we're talking about the northern and southern schools, but that are there. It doesn't mean that when one is kissed or one experiences self-nature of mind, one is enlightened. But it changes the game because you have experienced something outside the dimensions of samsara. And that's important. You may fall asleep again, but nevertheless, you'll always remember that. You'll remember that, just like you might remember your first kiss. You'll know that that was different. And so when we're practicing, we don't try to strive for these little short experiences like that, but they will come if one is sincere in terms of the practice. Okay, we continue on. Having gradually cleansed all the habitual tendencies of karma, all thoughts are self-liberated. By not conceptualizing the arising of thoughts and not abiding in their non-arising is meditative on the inconceivable primordial gnosis, which is free from arbitrary thinking. Thus, the essence of this teaching was handed down to Kasyapa and later to Bodhidharma. And I'll read that in a moment, but because we move too fast through this as already. This is good stuff. This is mind work. This is practice. This is serious looking into mind. And if you pay attention to this, it will help you tremendously in terms of the practice. So here it's saying by when you've cleaned off these habitual tendencies, then there's this, that you find that everything is liberated. And by not conceptualizing the arising thoughts, so thoughts are coming up, we see the thought, we don't have to worry about the thought, we understand it's created by the mind. If we attach to it, once we attach to the thought, then what happens is that we're conceptualizing and we're no longer liberated from the thought. So if the thought takes on a meaning of desire, when that thought arises in mind, a big giant diamond ring, and you look at it, and your mind may say, oh, the diamond ring came up because I was talking about it. But if I went, ooh, wow, wonder how many carats that is. Okay, that could be, internally flawless, or it could be this, let me see. Now you're conceptualizing. And at that point, you've lost the liberation, and you're guaranteeing that that diamond or a reasonable facsimile of it is going to appear again in mind at some later date, maybe sooner than later, because you're putting that in. But if you see it coming up, mind knows why it's there because you conjured it up. You let it go. It's all right. You don't have to abide in not seeing things. I don't want to see anything. Even if they come up, I don't want to see it. You're not trying to make the mind empty in this way. You're not abiding in not seeing, and you're not abiding in seeing. This is Madhyamika. It's very interesting here in terms of that, because what were the two realities in Madhyamika school? Anybody? Nobody.
Eternalism and nihilism.
You got too many isms in there. That's pretty fancy words. Can you put it into less fancy words?
The continuation of phenomena, and then the non-existence of phenomena.
You're getting warmer. Nobody knows. I always talk about it.
Absolutely relative truth.
So we have apparent
Reality.
reality and absolute reality.
Yeah.
And then what did Nagarjuna say about those two? Which one is real?
Neither
Neither
or both.
both. So we have a vote for neither and both. And could it be that the one is real and the other one is not? So that would be 4. Or check the lens. What did Nagarjuna say about the two realities? It's very, very important. If you do this, you understand Madhyamika, and then you can say, Nagarjuna said this, and they'll say, wow, you know Madhyamika school. What did he say? I'll give you a clue. It's a chantra.
Silence.
He didn't say anything. That was probably a good guess on your part after I gave you a clue there. But he didn't say anything. How could he say anything about it? To say anything would pose a defect in the representation of apparent reality and absolute reality. Apparent reality being that which appears, and absolute reality is where it appears upon, but is not separate from it. So we cannot separate it out. Sometimes that's why I talk about, can you separate the image off the mirror in any given moment? So you have to see the things in this way. It's very, very important. It's so incredibly important what is happening at this time. The Mahaprajnaparamita Sutras are coming in. Nagarjuna is coming in and he's presenting this doctrine, and they're asking him, well, which one's real? And he doesn't have to say anything. Once he says something, he messes the whole thing up. So all of this is going there and pointing to the mind, pointing to this idea of just mind, of the suchness of the mind. And so when we see that, all of these schools are coming together in an incredible way. This is Chan. And it's working in this way. And so this is important for us to see this, and so that we understand from where our school came from, but not only that we understand where our school came from, but how to practice. They're telling us how to practice, how to gaze at the wall. Don't cling to the thoughts. Don't banish the thoughts. Just look. Okay, we continue on.
Gilbert, David wants some clarification on what does it mean to not abide in the non-arising thoughts?
It means nothing. But don't hold on to the nothing. Who is abiding? So your question comes directly from samsara. You're tuning in, coming in on the samsara channel. Here it is. What does this mean like that? So anyway, it is just the suchness of it. You have to look to the suchness. And sometimes the masters, the ancient masters would say, what do you want, another cup of slop? No. So you have to go beyond your questions. Be done with your questions, exhaust them. Keep asking your questions. There's no doubt you have to ask your questions. But one day you have to walk yourself. It's not like when you were a little kid and you're seeing everybody around you walking and going, I can never do that. No. How did you learn how to walk? You saw other people walking. So you just do it yourself. It'll come. It's a good question. Okay, let me continue on because I'm already past my allotted time on this. And it said, thus the essence of this teaching, which was handed down by Kasyapa and later to Bodhidharma, is as follows. So now we're still at the beginning. We went all the way back to the Bodhidharma. So what is the reference? Historically, why is he saying was handed down to Kasyapa and later to Bodhidharma? Who is Kasyapa?
The flower twirler.
Yeah, the flower twirler. That was the first disciple of I was going to say Shifu, of the master of Buddha.
He was the
And-
one that smiled.
Yeah. So
That's right. Yeah. The smiler at the flower twirler.
Because he knew what the Buddha was talking about.
he had realized suchness. Okay. No. Okay. Sorry. I mean, I have to correct you guys because this is a matter of life and death. Okay. So then he says, non-conceptuality is vividly clear, and even this lucidness is not conceptualized. So this non-conceptuality, not holding on to thoughts, there's a clarity there, but it is not something like, wow, look at how everything's so crystal clear. No, you're not taking mushrooms and looking at the world. You know, you're looking at the world as it is. You don't have to be going, wow. You know, you don't hang on to that. If you hang on to it, then you just fall back into conceptualization. Wow, I used to think the world was just poop, but now I see it and it's great poop, you know. But you know, it's just this way. Don't hang on to those things. All right, and it says this primordial gnosis of intrinsic awareness. Oh, excuse me. This is the primordial gnosis of intrinsic awareness, which cannot be designated as this. So this primordial gnosis. Primordial means that's been there from the very beginning. What's been there from the very beginning? Come on, what are we studying?
Mind.
Say it.
Mind.
Mind. Gosh. My gosh, you guys are like, gee, my knees. All right. So mind, the primordial gnosis means it's always been there. The knowing aspect of mind has always been there. We just have to see that. It's not that we're picking up something new. It's always been there. We just missed it. Which cannot be designated as this. That's why they talk about it as thus. If we say this, it's like a finger pointing to it. But thus is thus what? What? And where can you take what to? You can't take thus to what? You see, it doesn't work. So it is in this manner in which one is practicing, as one is sitting to meditate. As you sit to meditate in this way, you're using the primordial gnosis. You have it already. My gosh, you have it. That's what you're doing when you meditate. When you're meditating, you're just there with the primordial gnosis. It's not a this or that. It sees this and that, but it doesn't see it as separate. It just sees it as mine, as it is. It doesn't have to abide in it or abide in non-abiding. It is just thus. So when you sit with right view, you got it right from the very beginning. Right from the very beginning, you've got it. But then you lose it because you start thinking, you start putting in your emotions, your desires, your vexations, and you mess the whole thing up. It's like a drummer beating on a drum and having a perfect rhythm, and then all of a sudden somebody says, that's crummy, and then he loses the beat, he loses the faith. Whatever it is, give it up. That's Mara coming up to affect you. But even Mara is mind. That's what Sujamoni realized. How can mind hurt mind? It's just this way. So when you sit to meditate, meditate in this way. You're meditating with this primordial gnosis. Okay. And we'll go on from there next week. I think we're going to be on this for a while because it's very worthwhile in many different reasons. One of them is just because I'm able to interject historically what's happening in this time period, but you're also seeing the budding of Buddhism at this point in terms of the Chinese, something that had already been worked through by the Indians, and it's essentially an echo coming to China, but it's a good echo, and it's something that they're working on. And before there was just certain lines of practice from the solitary sutras that people had to work with. But when the sutras began to come through, they were so many of them, they're coming in and gave people opportunity to compare them and to study them. It was very, very incredible. Let's see, is Esther here? Are you here?
Yes.
Oh, what is the name of that movie that I told you about to watch?
Which one?
I knew you didn't watch it. The one of coming the Chinese Buddhist. I forgot his name now.
Okay. It's about
120 minutes long.
the Chinese monk went to India for the sutras, right?
Yeah.
Is this
If you get to see,
Xuan Zhang.
say his name again.
Xuan Zhang.
Xuan Zhang. So if you would have said that, if I would have remembered, I would have said Huan Shan. So much for that. So you guys would not know what I'm saying. But there's a movie on YouTube right now that about a monk that from this time period that goes to India and all his trials and tribulations to get there. But he brought back 574 scrolls with him from India. Can you imagine the wealth of those scrolls coming into China from India? And
Journey to the West, and it was at the Big Goose Pagoda, I think, that he brought them to.
Yeah, he had gone to Nalanda University.
Yeah.
And so in any case, but the movie is good, but the reason it's kind of something that just came up and it was kind of contemporary to what I was studying, and in showing how the information came into China in little spurts, and then all of a sudden around this time period in the 7th century just poured in. And so it was really kind of they feasted on these sutras coming in, and you can see how it perfumed and how it affected subsequent thought. Although the main goal of this thought remained the same, it was buttressed by all this infusion of all these sutras coming in, where they could look at it and compare them and see not so much the differences between them, but the commonality and how they were working. So I want to spend the time during this time period because this was a very incredible time. It was as if if you've ever grown anything and you put a bean, in dirt, and all of a sudden you start seeing like a little bit of a sprout. It is this sprout, but then all of a sudden instantly branching out. And it's very amazing. Okay, so anyway, that's kind of where we're headed with all of this. This is why I want to stay with this. And if you do stay with it during this time period, you're going to learn a lot more of the history of Chan, which is very, very important, and the subtleties of it. I'm not so much going to be worrying about the differences in the schools as much as the commonality in the schools and who was developing what at that point. If there's some differences, I'll point them out, but I'm not going to get into that kind of an analysis intentionally. Okay, that's it. So thank you. We'll open it up to questions. Yes, go ahead, Louis.
I'd like to read something to Harry first, and then I'd like to ask a question.
All right.
Okay. 一书汉美白玉教，江林村路方西桥，不知金水花现法，一是金刚水微笑。
We are like fish in little water.
That's behind Esther, but I could only read it in Mandarin, but I don't know what it means.
Oh, okay.
However, my question was from the Lankavatara Sutra, and it was when Mahamadi was asking towards the end of the sutra about why we shouldn't eat meat. But my question didn't have anything to do with the meat because I liked it. But in there, they also tossed in leeks, garlic, and onions. And can you explain why the prescription against those was in the Lankavatara Sutra?
They have to do with how they're cooked or prepared. For instance, like onions, they can develop certain emotions, and they can develop lust and stuff. So they're considered to be unwholesome vegetables due to their reaction, emotional reactions derived from using them. That's kind of like a rough way of saying why they're not used. It's not that somebody said, you know what, I hate leeks, so I'm going to make that a prohibition. It is just something that, in terms of that, you know, it is what makes a hamburger so juicy. Grilled onions. But I mean, if you have the grilled onions and you develop a passion, and then all of a sudden you want a hamburger, it's a very simplified answer to you. Okay. So Google it. All right, David.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Gilbert. I wanted to ask a question about sitting. And my experience, when I went on the West Virginia retreat, I was probably, as you sort of knew, in a lot of physical discomfort from sitting. And so I've been trying to really practice just sitting more in a physical sense. But I've been getting a lot of sensations of pain coming up, and it's like I'm attaching to them and clinging to them, and you know, it's really hard to let go of those. And then you mentioned you know, spreading some gnosis on my legs to make the pain go away.
It works. It works. The thing is that remember, everything is created by the mind. So the more that you attach to the discomfort, the more you suffer. Physical pain is just the body telling you that you're doing something that's not used to, or it's deriving some kinds of discomfort. It is the attaching to that sensation that creates the suffering. This is what you don't understand. Once you understand that, then the pain can be there present without suffering. And so you still feel the pain, but you don't suffer from the pain. There's a difference. And you have to be able to overcome that fear. You create the fear that you have a pain in your legs. So you have a pain in your legs, and you know that every time you're going to sit, you're going to have a pain.
Yes.
And so when that happens, is that you can't look forward to sitting because you know the pain will come. And so you know, you're there like with Mr. T behind you saying, oh, there's gonna be pain, today, you know, and you're just there, and you're going like, yeah, that's it, there's this pain. But you don't have to do that. You just have to understand the pain will come. It's all right. You're not going to die of it, but you will die of holding on to it. But you have a chance, when you're sitting, but you have to give yourself a chance. Don't indulge in the pain. Don't indulge in looking for some experience or whatever. Just sit with no thought. Not bad. You already have it that moment. It's yours to lose. Okay? You'll be fine. Okay. You coming back again? David? Oh, you're muted. That doesn't mean you're immutable. Oh, you turned it off. All right. Anybody else? Michael?
Hello, Gilbert. Yeah, my internet is shaky, so I prefer to keep the camera off today. I have a question. So regarding the text you read, it's so precise, and yet it's written by a scholar, and I wonder how this can be. So because it's so easy to mess up the meaning by a little mistranslation here and adding a you here and so how comes, is this because this scholar is a practitioner, or so I wonder what preserves this coherence?
What preserves his coherence is his dedication of passing the Dharma without imposing the idea of a self. And you're right, in this particular part, and you see the difference sometimes when I correct people when they say, I think this, I'm saying, where did I come from? No, but he was essentially paraphrasing what had been written about, and he did a good job. That's why I read it. And there are some other times in here where he trips up, but I forgive him because the article in itself is very worthwhile. But there's times when you can see that his realization, he does not have realization, but he has a sincerity of looking into this. So he has at least the understanding of the right view in terms of doing that. And that's something. Some people, they can have the right view without having an experience of their own, but at least they can pass that on to others. Not bad. No, they can't talk about the other aspects of it because they have not achieved any kind of a realization like that, but they can still teach people about right view. And but it is precisely why I read it, was because it was that good of a passage that he had done. So yeah, it's good that you noticed it.
Thank you. And just a little comment. It's a she. It's Carmen. It's a woman. It's not a he. It's a she. She's a professor in Germany.
Ah, okay. I was looking at it because sometimes Carmen is a male name too. But I don't think I ever. Yeah, I was always looking at minor. How do you pronounce that?
Carmen Meinert, I guess. I don't have it on the screen right now, but yeah.
Well, I'll refer to her in the feminine gender then from now on. But thank you for the correction.
No problem.
So,
thanks.
Yeah, I'd give a shout out to a German, right? That's good. So, and then what did you think about the fourth and fifth dimensions? Were you here for that part?
Yes, I was here. Well, it's as you said. I mean, it's an attempt to question and go beyond what we see, but it will still remain conceptual. But yet, the way to look at it is as an invitation to not settle and to continue questioning and to always looking for, like, never be content and thinking now we have found the theory of everything. It's like a never-ending quest. So I think this is a proper conclusion out of this.
Well, that's why I was hoping you would contribute today. So I was mentioning you there because I just wanted your perspective as a quantum physicist to see how you would see that. It's very interesting in terms of looking at it, and it tends to break down the idea of this what we perceive to be immutable laws of nature. So, but it's good. Thank you. All right, Jing.
Hi, Gilbert.
Hello.
Since my doing the meditation close to 2 years now, by June, I have been doing meditation for 2 years. During this close 2 years time, I have experiences quite a few times, maybe 8 or 9 times. I don't know exactly how many times. Like this year, I had twice experiences. During the meditation, I felt my direction changed. So like right now I'm facing the computer, then the first time it appears like I feel I'm back. My back is facing the computer. So I was changing direction. So at first it was just a short time during the meditation, then become too longer. And then normally it's just like one direction, change to one direction, then happens, then continue change, like rotating. At that time, I feel when that happens, I never know when it's going to happen, but when that time happens, I feel extremely calm, but it's very, very alert. One part of me, I feel my things become multiple me. One me says, no, I did not change, I did not move. But that's just like by sort of a logical thinking, I never change. Then that change direction feeling, it's so vivid, so real. It's like it only happens at a time, like even like now, anytime I close my eyes, I have no direction sense. But at that time, it's just so vivid. And I don't exactly see things, but I feel like that feel is so strong. My direction, those, then another me says, I know your thinking is right, you did not, you was facing this way, but another also said to another one, your sense is also so true. That means at that time I'm gazing my mind, are these, which one's real?
Okay. You remind me of a movie, one of my favorite movies, The Wizard of Oz. And there's a scene in where these monkeys come down and they attack all of the animals and stuff, and they had the scarecrow. He's made out of hay, and they scattered him all over, and so he's there after the attack and asking for help of the others. And the Tin Man comes up and says, "What happened? He wasn't there." And he said, "Well, they came and they threw my arm over there and threw this over here and threw my legs over there and my other leg over there." And the Tin Man said, "Well, that's you all over." There's wisdom there. That's you all over. So when you did that, what part of that is you? And what part is the straw over here that they took from your arm, you, or this one over here? But the manner in which you were looking at it can only get you to the point of unified mind. So unified mind is this kind of an experience that one has of the world, and you defined it very, very well, by the way, where you experience the world as you, and so it isn't bad to experience that, okay, but it's bad to hold on to it. To get there, to get that experience that you got, takes effort. And for somebody practicing for 2 years, that's good, but you have to let go of that. Don't hold on to that, or else all you'll do is superimpose the self. What they say, you change the little self into the big self, but the self is still there. So be very, very careful. For you to listen to me after 2 years of practice, you're quite fortunate, because you might be, with the wrong persons, they might say, well, that's great, or they don't understand what happened to you. But that's like you all over. It's just unified mind. But you have to move beyond that. You have to cut the idea of the self. You don't try to cut it in a mental way. You just release yourself from the idea of anything that might lead to the identity of yourself, even if it's behind you. Okay, it's still self, but not bad that you experience that. That's good, because again, that's unified mind. But you've got to go beyond that. So I give you half credit, okay, for that. But you have to keep going, and you'll be fine. Listen to my lessons well and carry them out, and you'll move beyond that experience, because you only got somewhere, but you got off the train at that station of unified mind, but you can't stay there. The longer you stay there, the harder it is for you to get going again. It's very important to get out of that right away. Just like tag, you touched it, keep moving. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, when that happens, I normally will say, I am. I trying to not to thinking it, but that feeling is so strong. Even will stay with me at the beginning was just a short time. Then you don't feel that anymore. Then it's like when we're through meditation longer now, sometimes the whole 1 hour almost I was feel until I open my eyes, then I feel, oh, I'm still facing here. So, but when that happens, I trying to say like just I am, just say, not really lungs out, just quietly inside. Is that when that happens, that's how should I do? Like at that moment, like if it's not all the time, like this year only had twice, but since the 2 years, I had maybe 8 or 9, quite a few times.
Yeah, just drop off the idea of you being behind you or seen behind you, and just use just naked awareness. Okay, naked awareness means just be aware behind you, be aware in front, or you don't even have to have it spatial. You just have to have an awareness of everything, but don't call it you. So that's the difficulty of getting into unified mind, is it's hard to get out of it. The longer that you're in it, the longer you'll stay in it. So you need to break out of it. Like I say, it's a good condition to have experience, but you have to move out of it. So many people get stuck in that, and then they think that that's, and this is not what you said, but some people think that that's some kind of an enlightening experience. It's not, but it isn't bad. It's something that you just have to translate or convert it to awareness. Okay. And just when you sit to meditate, right from the very beginning, just extend your awareness out in all directions. And you'll find that you don't have to have the you there. Okay. The you is not necessary, just the awareness. And then you'll break through the unified mind. Okay. So it's not bad, not bad.
Thank you.
But like I say, please heed my warning about that. Otherwise, you're lucky to get that in 2 years. But I don't want you to spend another 10 years having the same experience. You only learn the lambada. I want you to learn other things too. Okay. How to dance. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any last questions? Nobody? Okay, well, again, thank you for all coming and joining in and participating. The sincerity of this, pay it to your practice and pay it to other people's practice, and help them and bring them in and do this. This is not for everyone. A lot of people, they think, oh, Gilbert, he talks way too high up here. But my thing is that I want to get you to the point where you can get a realization, and I'll put it up, my way of practicing in terms of getting people to realizations against anybody. I really feel that this is a way that people get a realization, but you have to have a deep root to be able to practice in this way. But if you practice in the right way, it does pay off. It really does. So keep practicing, bring others to it, show you that sincerity. Okay. And we'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Amitofo. Take care.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.